Lesson 19, I will create and solve multi-step word problems from given tape diagrams and equations. Now, today's lesson is going to be very similar to what we've done the last 2 days, except for the last 2 days you have been solving word problems. And today you're actually going to be creating word problems. So we are, again, not going to be using our math journals. We are going to go ahead and begin with our problem set. So I want you to get out your problem set, and let's take a look at problem number 1. Now, on your paper, you're going to see this tape diagram. Yours is going to look a little more official. Mine looks a little bit hand-drawn. But you are to create and solve a simple two-step word problem from the tape diagram below. Now, obviously, there is a right and a wrong answer for this, but there are several answers that could be correct. Now, I'm going to walk you through this first problem together. Now, I'm looking at the tape diagram, and I can tell that altogether there are 7,104. It tells me that the context is people at a football game. So I'm supposed to create a word problem around people at a football game. So we could start off with something like this. Obviously, this is not the only correct answer. This is just one example. We could say there were 7,104 people at a football game. Okay, so there's my total. Now, part of those people are going to be 4,295, and then there's another part of people, 982, and then there is the part that we're trying to solve for, and that is A. So I'm thinking to myself, people at a football game. So what if I said something like 4,295 people were male, 982 and 982 were children. And then I could say the rest of the people were women. So then I could ask, here would be my question, how many women were at the football game? Now, it says to not only create a simple two-step word problem, but you also have to be able to solve the word problem. So here's where I would solve. And again, there's more than one way to solve this problem, but I would begin by taking my whole. If I were solving this problem myself, I would start with 7,104, and I would subtract 4,295 to see what was left. So you could begin by adding your 4,295 and 900 together, because again, there's more than one way to solve this. I'm going to go back here. My pen's, here it is. Okay, so I'm going to begin by taking 7,104, and I'm going to subtract 4,295. I am not ready to subtract in the ones, but when I go to the tens, there's nothing to decompose, so I have to go to no hundreds, but I have 10 tens. I'm going to decompose one of those tens. Now I have 9 tens and 14 ones, but I'm not ready to subtract in the hundreds, so I'm going to decompose 1,000, and that makes 6 thousands and 10 hundreds. So now I'm ready to subtract. So I've got 9, 0, 8, and 2. Again, if you have another way to solve it, go ahead and solve it, and whenever you're ready to check back, we'll just check and see if we got the same answer. So that means that there's 2,809 people at the football game after I take away all the men. Now I'm going to take my 2,809 and subtract how many were children, which is 982. So I'm ready to subtract in the ones, but I'm not ready to subtract in the tens. I'm going to decompose 100, that leaves 7 hundreds, and that gives me 10 tens. I'm not ready to subtract in the hundreds, so I'm going to decompose 1,000, that leaves 1,000, now I have 17 hundreds. So I have 7 ones, 2 tens, 8 hundreds, and 1,000. So, how many women were at the football game? There were 1,827 women football game. I could stop there, but I want you just to make sure that I did this correctly, I'm just going to do a little bit of estimation. So if I say that there was about 7,000 people at the game, I'm going to write it up here. If there were about 7,000 people at the game, and about 4,000 of those were men, that leaves 3,000 people. About 1,000 were children, that leaves 2,000 people. So when I get 2,000 when I estimate and my actual answer is 1,820, I know that my answer is reasonable. Now that doesn't tell me that I didn't make some kind of silly mistake, but at least my answer is reasonable. Okay, again, you could have written a completely different story. You also could have done a different strategy, but you still should have got 1,827 for an answer. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at the second problem. Now, I'm not going to do the second problem with you, but I do want you to take a look at the context. I want you to take a look at the tape diagram, and I want you to solve a two-step addition word problem from the tape diagram below. So I want you to notice that there isn't a whole this time. We have two, and we're comparing. And we have, our context is the cost of two houses. So maybe you could write some kind of addition word problem where you're comparing the cost of the two houses. And I want you to notice what the variable is. The variable is M. So that's the total of the two houses together. So when you write your question, you're going to want to include or ask some kind of total question. Now, if you're completely and totally stuck, you can ask a neighbor who's perhaps already done this problem if they can help you. If they can't help you, then you can come and ask me. I don't want to give you an answer because there are lots of answers to this question that could be correct because you're making up your own story. Now, so your problem, you're going to have to write some kind of problem, but your problem should be asking for the value of M. So let me show you of what M should equal. I can tell you that much, okay? So I don't know what your problem is, but if I wanted to find the total of M, then I would have 215,554. And when I look over here at my tape diagram, there's two of those. So I'm actually going to go ahead and add another 215,554. And I'm also going to add 90,457. So I could have made this two separate addition problems, but I'm just going to add it all together because I'm pretty good at addition. I can do this. All right, so I have 8 and 7, which makes 15. And now I've got 15 plus 1, which is 16. And that gives me 15. Gives me 11. And I have 9, 10, 11, 12. Gives me 521,565. Now, if we're talking cost of the houses, then the reference could be money. I don't know what your statement is going to be. It depends upon what your question was. But your total or your answer should have been 521,565. But you should have written a word problem to go along with that answer. Okay? All right, let's take a look at problem number 3. So you're going to create and solve a 3-step word problem involving addition and subtraction from the tape diagram below, and the context is the weight of 3 different whales. Okay, moving on to problem 2. We're going to create and solve a 2-step addition word problem from the tape diagram below, and our context this time is the cost of 2 houses. So I want you to pause the video, and I want you to try to think of a word problem that you could use that is around this diagram. So I want you to notice that, first of all, we're comparing 2 items. That's why there's 2 tape diagrams. And one item is 215,554, and the other one is the same as this one, but it's 90,457 more. And the M represents that we want to know the total of both. So I want you to pause, create a 2-step word problem, and then I want you to solve that problem. When you're ready to check your answer, I want you to press play. Okay, this is an example of a problem that you may have written. This is not the only answer. You may have written something completely different. But I went ahead and labeled the first one as House A and the second one as House B. And I said that House A costs $215,554. House B costs $90,457 more than House A. How much do both houses cost together? So regardless of what your problem set up here, you should have been asking for the total of these two together. in which case you should have come up, when you added all of this together, you should have had that both houses cost $621,565. Problem number 3. This time you're going to create and solve a 3-step word problem involving addition and subtraction from the tape diagram below. And this time our context is the weight of 3 different whales. And you'll notice that in your tape diagram you have 3 different diagrams. So we know that one is 8,200. We know that one is less, it's 350, 3,500 less. And then we have one that's 2,010 more. And again, we have the question mark here. We're trying to figure out what are all of them together. So I want you to write your problem. I want you to solve it, and then I want you to check back. Okay, so this is one way that you could have written this problem. I said well A weighs 8,200 kilograms. Well B weighs 3,500 less kilograms than well A. And well C weighs 2,010 more kilograms than well A. How many kilograms do all 3 whales weigh together? So I did well A from well B to see what well B weighed, and it was 4,700. Then I added my 8,200 to 2,010 to get how much well C weighed, and then I added them all together. So regardless of what your problem said, the total should have been 23,310 kilograms. Okay, problem 4. This time, you are to take this math problem and draw a tape diagram that models this equation. Then you are to create a word problem that uses the numbers from the equation. Remember to first create a context, write a statement about the total and a question about the unknown. Then you can tell the rest of the information. Okay, so we've got 5,233. We're adding 3,094 to that, and we're adding the value k, which we don't know what that is, and the total is 12,946. So I'm going to show you an example of what your tape diagram might look like. So I have the total here as 26,854. Here's part of it, 17,729. Here's another part, 3,771, and I'm trying to find the value of a. So I've completely and totally created a random problem. Your problem could have had any kind of context, but I said a survey of 26,854 people showed 17,729 prefer orange juice, 3,731 prefer grape juice, and the rest prefer apple juice in the morning. How many people prefer apple juice? Regardless of what your story is, solve A, you should have found that there were 5,394 was the value of A. In my case, 5,394. So this is kind of a tricky lesson. I hope that you don't get too frustrated. It's really difficult to be able to write a problem, but if you're able to create a problem and solve it, then you have truly mastered the concept, and you shouldn't have any issues with the exit slip. So if you have any questions about this problem set, please feel free to come and see me before you get started on your exit slip.